Chapter 14. Walk. In 2015, Tom Thiis set out on a long walk from his home in New Jersey. Along the way, he picked up a stray dog whom he named Savannah. And as of this writing, he is somewhere in Africa, after having walked the length of the continents of North and South America, traipsed the European continent, and boarded a ship to cross the Mediterranean Sea. Like a modern-day Forrest Gump, the man set out on a journey and just kept going. Only instead of run, Forrest, run, it would be walk, Tom, walk. You can follow him on Instagram at @theworldwalk. You and I would do well to follow in his footsteps. No, I'm not suggesting that we leave our families, our jobs, and all our commitments and set out on an around-the-world journey. Few people have the time, resources, or inclination for such an adventure. But simply going for a good walk is good discipline. Walking is among the most human of activities, and it begins at an early age. What parent does not remember their child's first steps? When my son was 13 months old, I watched with glee as he tottered across the parquet wood floors of our Brooklyn home. His toes gripping the surface beneath him, arms outstretched, and eyes wide and responsive to my enthusiastic encouragement. As the years unfolded, walking led to running, soccer, and his journeys through Europe, Central America, and Southeast Asia. Today, he walks from his home to a nearby train that takes him to his office in downtown Washington, D.C. You and I walk every day. You might even walk intentionally for exercise, or as a part of your job. For most of us, walking is such an automatic process in our lives that we probably don't give it a thought. Unless, of course, there are factors that interfere with your walking, such as uncomfortable shoes, a bad hip, or a bunion. We walk down the hall, on the sidewalk, and across the yard. We walk down grocery store aisles in search of the right salsa. We walk and sometimes run to catch our flight. The average human being walks at a pace of 3 miles an hour. At that pace, I can get to my local post office and back in 1 hour, and to our bank and back in about an hour and 30 minutes. The local library, with a stop at a nearby bakery, would be about 2 hours. Why would I want to do that when I can hit the bakery, bank, post office, and library all in an efficient 20 minutes, especially if I get my bakery item to go and eat it while I drive? My gas-powered Camry is much more efficient. 3 miles an hour? Sheesh! I don't have that kind of time. My life is 63 miles an hour. Stop. 3 miles an hour is much more significant than we realize. Walking is a spiritual practice. One of the oldest stories, an epic tale of a hero's journey, is that a whole people went walking. After 400 years of slavery in Egypt, Moses led the Hebrew slaves on a 40-year walk through a sea and across the desert toward a land of promise. Jesus walked all over ancient Palestine. He walks along the Sea of Galilee, encounters a pair of twin brothers fishing, and calls them to a new life as his disciples. He inspires others to walk, as Peter, in his enthusiasm for seeing Jesus, gets out of his fishing boat and walks on water, at least until he realizes where he is and then temporarily plunges into the lake. Jesus' most well-known walk occurred in the days following his resurrection, where 2 disciples are walking along and Jesus strolls up alongside to engage in a conversation. I think the phrase, "Jesus himself came up and walked alongside them," echoes down through the ages. When you are walking with Jesus. Perhaps God is a 3-mile-an-hour God. All truly great thoughts are conceived while walking. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche wrote these words toward the end of a decade-long bout with, let's call it melancholy. After resigning from his position as a university professor, Nietzsche retired to the countryside and began taking long walks in the beautiful natural surroundings of Upper Engadine in the Swiss Alps. This self-prescribed medication of long walks brought healing to both his mind and body and, dare I suggest, his soul. The long country walk has become a thing of the past for many in the United States. As the automobile has become our dominant mode of transport, we've abandoned the biped lifestyle. The roads where I live are not conducive to walking because there is no shoulder or sidewalk. As I visit various suburbs, I might see sidewalks, but I rarely spot a pedestrian. It seems the urban environment may be one of the few remaining safe places for walking. When I lived in the city of New York, I walked more than I do now, living in the country. Not only did the streets of Brooklyn have sidewalks with nearby grocery stores, but I also regularly made the brisk 1-mile walk to the subway station. Of all the opportunities for regaining one's physical condition, the daily walk may be the simplest and easiest to achieve. Many clinical research studies report the numerous benefits of just 30 minutes a day of physical activity. Improved mood, reduced likelihood of chronic conditions such as diabetes and cardiovascular disease, improved digestive system, and possibly the loss of a few extra pounds. In the book Younger Next Year, Dr. Henry Lodge shares many stories of patients who simply walked 30 minutes a day and saw significant life and health changes. In one particular case, a patient comes to him upon retirement. Just prior to his move from New York City to his Florida vacation home, the man visits Dr. Lodge for a physical examination. Dr. Lodge informs the man that his retirement may be brief due to his poor condition and excessive weight. He prescribes a daily walk on the beach. A year later, the man returns for an appointment and reports that by walking every day, he has lost the weight and found renewed energy. The daily walk may indeed be life-saving. In his best-selling book, Spark, The Revolutionary New Science of Exercise and the Brain, John J. Ratey of the Harvard Medical School and professor of clinical psychiatry writes of the dramatically positive impacts of exercise on the human brain. Citing a wide range of research across many disciplines, Ratey demonstrates the positive effects of exercise on everything from learning in adolescence to treating anxiety and addiction, and significantly improved aging bodies and brains. His most dramatic illustration refers to research done at Naperville Central High School outside of Chicago, where students' physical education classes were scheduled for first thing in the morning. A basic routine of morning movement got the students' brains and body ready for learning. The improvements in test scores, grades, and overall education were so significant that other school districts, even those in more economically deprived regions, adopted the same approach and noticed similar improvements. Among Ratey's recommended forms of exercise is, you guessed it, walking. He also advocates a mixture of walking, jogging, and running. All this physical activity activates connections in our brain that led to cognitive improvement and a host of other benefits. In the course of my life, a long walk has provided as much, and possibly more, healing and clarity as any session with a therapist. For me, the benefit is in the combination of fresh air, a pounding heart, and a wandering mind. I used to think it was just my imagination that led me to conclude that walking was a gift, but then I learned there's actual science to back me up. The walk puts it all together. When you walk, you are engaging in one of the most profoundly spiritual and physically beneficial activities. You are a walking prayer machine. So where do you walk? You might walk in the mall in the winter. You might walk in a park. in a wildlife refuge, or around the block. You might walk alone, with your dog, or with a group of friends. If you're walking, you're engaging heart, mind, body, and soul. It's the complete spiritual practice, and it's as ancient as human life on this planet. We walk every day, and when we do, we are practicing everyday spirituality.